Our broker was not staying on top of it. Our realtor was running around like a chicken with her head cut off. We were not hearing anything from anybody.
I can imagine that. A realtor running around like a chicken with her head cut off. Down to the wire as we're getting to the closing table. Now the urgency is really kicking in. We got to do something. Somebody's got to step up and underwrite this mortgage. It's a disaster. Her agent was an idiot. Y'all hate real estate agents. I did a video a couple of days ago, maybe a week or so ago, about the distrust for real estate agents. The comments were really quite shocking. I get it. I understand. I work in the business. I manage agents. I've gone through a lot of agents because I get frustrated as well. I think people get into the business thinking that, I don't know what they're thinking. They're high on the horse kind of thing. They think they're fantastic, great business people. Most of them, at least today, don't even own houses themselves, but they pride themselves all over social media, TikTok, Instagram, about how great they are at selling houses, and they don't even know what it's like to own one. And I'm not cutting on you if you're a real estate agent about to bitch me out, because I'm speaking the truth. But let's hear what some other people are saying.
How do I report a crooked real estate agent? I don't even know if she's crooked. I don't know what the frick her problem is, but the lady that we got through Zillow is an absolute trash. Let me tell you about it. So there is a condo that is a short sale, and so it was listed for $230. So we went, looked at it, and then we wanted to put an offer in for $200. It's a lot less, but nobody is lining up for the place. Okay, we waited forever to hear back from her. She didn't, include me on an email like she did the next go around. Anyway, she didn't include me on an email, nothing. She just comes back and says, yeah, they didn't approve our letter. 2 weeks later, didn't approve our letter of intent. She said they wouldn't accept $200, allegedly. I don't even think she asked or submitted anything. So she said that. So then we said maybe we should come back at $215. And she took her like a week, and she says, I can't get in touch with anybody to be able to figure that out. Well, calls me because I didn't hear anything about the $215, and she said, hey, doesn't mention anything about it. Then she says, hey, we should offer $240. And at the time it was still $230. So then I listen to her stupid voicemail, and I look at the phone on Zillow, and I find out that it dropped to $210. So I send her a screenshot of it, and I'm like, hey. She says, well, shit, it must have just dropped today.
Oh, shit.
So then she's like, do you want me to put in an offer for $210? I said, yes. So she copies me this one time on the email offering the asking price, and she fucking sends it to the wrong email address. I didn't even realize this until today. So it's been like a week, and we've heard nothing back. So then today she calls and leaves a message that says, oh, by the way, somebody just put a letter of intent in that is significantly higher than you guys, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, well, don't even worry about it, because at this point, I don't even want the place. So then after that whole thing goes, and I tell her not to worry about it, we come home. I look at the paperwork that she filled out, the letter of intent, and at the top it has an email address, and it doesn't match the email address that she actually sent the shit to. So then I email that damn email that she sent, that same one that she sent our pre-approval letter to, and it gets kicked back as undeliverable.
Well, I mean, a couple things. She said that her agent was crooked. Here's the problem. Most people think that they need a real estate agent to buy a house. And the unfortunate thing is buyers sit back and wait, just like you heard. It's hard to get a hold of agents sometimes. But the interesting thing is they put in a letter of intent. And a lot of people think they must put this full-blown contract together when you really don't. You could just you could even be verbal. It wouldn't be binding, but you could pick up the phone and say, hey, I have a buyer. They love to buy this house, but their offer would be whatever, in this case, 210, 220, 240, whatever it is. But so many things are going wrong. And unfortunately, this is something that happens.
So, yeah. So this dumb bitch never submitted anything for us, whether it be 200, 215, 210, nothing was never sent. So
yeah, A couple of things you could do if you are in this position where you want to offer. You don't want to fill out a 40 or 60 or 80 page contract, depending on what state you're in, with the disclosures and all the addendums that could be attached to it. You could just cut through the chase and say, this is my offer. I would have your real estate agent blind copy you on the correspondence. I would definitely say that they should pick up the phone and talk to the agent on the other side, because a lot of times you can get them to say certain things that give you some kind of an indication. Has there been any activity, any offers that were rejected? A lot of times the agents, though they may not be allowed to give you confidential information, a lot of agents do, because obviously they want to sell the house. They want a commission check. If you're wanting to put an offer on a house and you don't want to put that full-blown contract together, let's start the conversation with the other side and see where it goes. But have your agent certainly copy you on everything that's being sent.
I need to figure out how to talk to somebody at Zillow about this lady, because she is absolutely fucking terrible at her job and should not be selling houses, because obviously it's not the profession for her.
Zillow is selling leads. If you hit that contact or tour today and you pick a time or whatever it is, they are pointing you to agents that pay to get the lead. Now, in this case, it was a short sale, which meant that it had the price that is being offered is less than what the people owe the bank on the mortgage. And so there's a third party involved that has to be part of the decision process. But in a short sale, if a house is being advertised as a short sale, this could be a very good opportunity for you to come in and buy it for a lot less, and the bank would take the loss. Now, depending on where they are in the short sale process, this could take months in order to get an answer. So it's not a very fast moving type of transaction. You should probably at least prepare for a 60 or 90 day time period before you even get an answer back from the bank, unless that price that's being advertised has already been authorized by the lender.
So I'm livid. So now we have a new realtor, thank God. Somebody that we actually know, like one of our customers, who is submitting an actual letter of intent for us tonight. So hopefully she didn't completely fuck it up for us, but we'll see.
Yeah, so then there's somebody else submitted a letter of intent. So I guess time is of the essence in every transaction. We hear all the time where a property is sitting on the market for 60, 90, 180 days, whatever, a while, and there's been no activity. Or maybe there was activity early on, but by the time you're wanting to put an offer, maybe it's been a period of time of no activity. And then all of a sudden we get this, well, there's other interests, or there's multiple offers now. It's been sitting on the market for 100 days. And now all of a sudden you're putting an offer in, and the listing agent saying, oh, we've got multiple offers here. So you can't always trust what you're hearing with that either. And the point to that is, how would you know? What proof is there? There is no burden of proof that a listing agent has to provide you at all with copies of an offer, even if you're going in with an escalation clause, which means you give a price that you'll buy it for, and then an escalation clause would raise that number up to another number in certain increments until you hit your maximum. So for instance, let's say you're looking at a house, you're putting an offer on, and your offer is $250,000, but maybe you would pay $280,000. So you could say, my offer is $250,000, but I will pay up to $280,000 in $5,000 increments over your highest best price. So your offer's $250,000, somebody's at $265,000. That means you're at $270,000, $5,000 more than that offer that's higher than yours, $5,000 more. That would be your escalation clause up to your $280,000. If the seller comes back and accepts your offer, there's no burden of proof that they have to show you the contract, at least in Maryland. And I don't know any other state actually where they have to actually show you a contract that proves that they had a bona fide higher and better offer than your original offer.
Okay, so I'm here to just vent a little bit about trying to buy a home for the first time. Excuse the background noise, I'm doing dishes. But anyways, I am really stressed out and I'm really confused about how realtors work. I know it's a sale thing, but aren't you guys supposed to be the ones to help us move towards buying a house? A couple weeks ago, maybe about a month ago, I got online, just started looking up different options for home buying, whether it was rent to own or straight up buy. I've never bought a house myself, so I am a first time home buyer, but I have experience in purchasing a house for my ex. He didn't want to do all the paperwork. He didn't know where to start. I did it all. I did the footwork and everything, but it was never in my name. I just helped him buy it. So I go on a website, I put in my information, and of course, your phone starts blowing up when you put all your information in trying to get an email on some advice or some suggestions or homes to even look at. I get a call from a guy and I tell him that I'm just looking, but I was curious to know if rent to own was legit or if I should just continue to start working on purchasing a home. He seemed very helpful initially and was like, "Oh, we can help you. Where are you at with your credit? What are you doing with your debt? Da 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 da." I told him that I was doing the snowball effect on payments on my credit cards so I could get it down to less debt to income ratio ASAP. Trying to move into a house sometime by the end of 2024. He gives you this whole spiel like, "Oh, you sound like you're on the right track. You know what you're doing. Your credit score is really not bad at all. And there's definitely some programs we can get you on to help you with a down payment assistance." Then he goes, "Well, let's schedule some financial guidance appointment next week." And I'm like, "Cool, let's do it. I'm down. I'm definitely in the mind space of becoming a homeowner." So the appointment shows up, no call, nothing. Even though I got the appointment notifications. So I called him and I'm like, aren't we supposed to be having like a Zoom call or something? And he literally tells me, "Oh, well, I just got out the gym. I totally spaced it. I'm sorry." Plus, with it being the holidays, I get it. Things just get away from you. But after I've gotten like 6 notifications of the upcoming appointment, you'd think he would have had it too. So then he reschedules with me for last week. He was like, "Well, when can you do it again?" I'm like, "Okay, Friday, let's do it. We are so ready for this big step." Friday comes and goes, no call, no appointment reminders this time around, literally nothing. So I'm feeling quite discouraged right now in regards to how genuine are realtors in caring about getting someone that sale. Hello, they make the money too, right?
Well, here's the deal. Realtors are interested when you're ready to buy. And a rent to own is not going to help a real estate agent whatsoever. In fact, I think rent to own is a joke, personally. It's a way to hook a buyer and give them this false hope that a portion of their rent is going to go towards the purchase price of the home within a certain period of time. There are corporations out there that do it. I mean, there are some decent programs. Actually, I sold a house to one of these types of programs where the person was going to rent to own. They had 5 years to buy the house. However, here's the problem. What's the price? You're not negotiating the price today and buying it within the 5-year period for that price. At least I know of no program that works that way. It will be the market price or whatever's negotiated. So you get in, now you're committed because you're feeling like, well, if I don't buy this house, a certain percentage of the rent I just wasted because that is going towards my purchase price or my down payment. The part about the agent not calling them back, this happens even agent to agent. I've had situations. In fact, I had one time where I had a client that was interested in buying a specific house. I couldn't even get the agent to call me back. It sat on the market, no response. I left a message for the agent. I emailed the agent. I called him again. Finally, my buyer bought a different house. But this is an industry problem. Gets back to the professionalism again. Brokers should really be held more accountable for the people that they have working under their license. You cannot, as a salesperson, a realtor salesperson, you cannot operate without holding your license or having your license placed at a brokerage. Even though they're independent contractors, most of them, there are some brokers that do employee type of arrangements where they give them a paycheck, but most of them they basically eat what they kill. So if they sell something, they get paid. Other than that, they don't. unfortunately, and here's what I would do. If I was in a situation where I had a problem with a real estate agent, I would stop communicating with that agent, and I would call the broker and file a complaint with the broker and ask them for some accountability. Hey, I want to know what happens after you speak with this agent. I'm not interested in doing business with that agent, but I want you to get back to me. I want to know how the conversation went. And I may not say that I don't want to do business with the agent. I may say, look, can you get a hold of this agent, find out why they're not calling me back, what's going on? And I'm not going to use them anyway, but I do want to know that at least they know and that their agent knows that they know, whether they care about it or not. I'm sure there's a lot of brokers out there that don't care. And along that same spirit of intent, when we're talking about rent to own, there's something out there called subject to now that has sort of absorbed some of this inventory where a homeowner falls behind in their mortgage, and to avoid foreclosure, these investors, these subject to investors, they get these lists because after you don't pay your mortgage payment for 90 days, it goes into foreclosure. It becomes public record. People can access this data, sort of like the pre-foreclosure status. You hit that 90-day mark and they reach out and say, hey, I can save your house from foreclosure and maybe put some cash in your pocket. So what they do is they take the house from the owner and they take over making the payments. They'll put down a lump sum of money to bring the mortgage up to date, halt the foreclosure process. They had the owner of the house sign the deed over to them. So they can do several different things at that point. They can either sell the house and then pay off the mortgage completely, or they can rent to own, put somebody in the house. They actually make them, in most cases, put down a large down payment. And a lot of times that pays for the money they laid out to bring the mortgage current. So they accept a large deposit from the rent to own buyer, and then they pay rent. But the important thing here is that everything, since it is a rent to purchase agreement, anything that goes wrong with the house becomes that renter's responsibility. So if the heating and air system breaks, that rent to own renter pays for everything. Ultimately, most of them move out and default, and the subject to owner, the one that holds the deed that sort of started this whole process, will rent it again, rent to own, and again, take another deposit. Meanwhile, the original owner, the seller that signed over their deed but still is on the hook for the mortgage, holds all the liability because the bank can do several different things. There's a due on sale clause that when the bank finds out, and that's why a lot of these subject to investors, they don't actually record the deed. The seller signs the deed over to them. They don't record it. So the bank never gets notified of a sale because there's a due on sale clause that where they could escalate the payment to who? They escalate it to the seller that is still on the hook for the mortgage. Right? They don't go after the subject to guy. It's all on that seller that received very little except for being bailed out of a defaulting mortgage in a lot of cases. So the other part of that is if this subject to owner at this point who's holding the deed decides not to pay the mortgage and pocket all of the rent for 6 or 7 or 8 months, however long, they start the foreclosure process. They go after that seller that doesn't have the title to the house anymore. They don't have the house or possession to the house, and they're screwed. So this is, my ears always go up when I hear somebody say, well, I'm looking at this rent to own situation. In fact, I had an attorney that reached out to me a couple of months ago. I talked to him a few weeks ago, but a couple of months ago, attorney reached out to me and said, look, I have this situation where my client is being kicked out basically of this house, and they thought they were buying it in this rent to own, but they're being kicked out. And it's going to be interesting because he's trying to get some kind of a class action lawsuit together to find more people that have bought from this investment firm that was advertising this rent-to-own program.
Guys, we just got literally played. So this is a story of a terrible home buying experience. Everyone who knows me in real life knows that my husband and I were recently in escrow. We have an awesome real estate agent. She has gone above and beyond for us, and we love her. As a first-time home buyer, there are a lot of things about escrow that we didn't really know, so we were definitely relying on the expertise of a real estate agent to kind of navigate the waters with us. And if you don't know anything about buying a house, you're in escrow as the buyer. That's when you get to write up all your contingencies, or basically everything that you see that is wrong with the house, and then you send it back to the seller and you play this tug of war until you agree upon, and then the house is yours.
All right, so hang on a minute. An escrow does not mean that you're submitting your offer with all of your contingencies. When you go into escrow, that means that your offer has been accepted. All right. What happens at that point, and the way our contracts are written here, it's probably the same way in many states, if not all across the country, is that when your contract is fully accepted, your escrow or your EMD, some people will call it earnest money deposit, it's not your down payment on the house. I usually recommend 1%. So if you're buying a $500,000 house, your EMD or your escrow would be $5,000. You should not put more than 1% down. A lot of times an agent will say, well, put more money down. It shows that you're more serious. No, it does not. If you're buying a $500,000 house and a $5,000 check does not show you're serious, your agent, something's wrong with your agent, in my opinion. But they're just trying to get you to commit more. The problem is that in escrow, you can't get that money back unless the seller agrees to it. So you could do a unilateral contract termination, meaning you're sending them something where your contingencies, there's something went wrong, you no longer want to buy the house, but you don't just say to your agent, give me my $5,000 back. No, the seller it's a bilateral agreement to release the earnest money deposit or the escrow back to the buyer. So I just wanted to clarify that. So if she was in escrow, she had an accepted contract and wrote a check. Now, something else that's important to note is in Maryland, we can either let the seller know that $5,000 escrow or earnest money deposit has either been turned over, the agent is holding that check, that when the contract is accepted, they will get that money to whoever the escrow agent would be, whether it's the broker, buyer's broker, or a title company, for instance. Or the other thing that they can do in our contract is they could say, or within X amount of days of the contract acceptance, the buyer will provide the escrow or the earnest money deposit.
We paid inspectors to come to this house to do the usual sewage, drainage, the overall house inspection.
And that happens after your contract is accepted. So like I said, she had an accepted contract. You're not going to have inspectors in most cases. Why would you spend the money for inspectors if you didn't agree to a price and a certain amount of terms? So part of her agreement was to have inspections. That is done after your contract has been accepted and you've paid and deposited into an escrow account your earnest money deposit.
I cannot emphasize this enough. You need to pay for your own inspections. Do not let the seller pay for your inspections or do the inspections on your behalf.
Okay. Let's just talk about that for a second, because a lot of times as a listing agent, I will have and some agents request the seller to do this, but sometimes the seller will say to me, Todd, should I go ahead and get a home inspection before we put it on the market? And that way I can address all of the issues and then we can provide them with the inspection report. Will that be sufficient? No, it's not going to. In most cases, it's not sufficient, because of what she's about to say. I don't know. I haven't heard this video prior to just now, but why would you accept a seller's inspection report? You wouldn't. I tell sellers, I don't want you to have an inspection report, because if you're not willing to fix things and I know about it, I'm required to disclose things like safety concerns, safety issues that inspection result might turn up, or material facts like the basement leaking or something like that. And a lot of buyers, unfortunately, and if I'm representing the seller, I'm going to say to the seller, look, the buyer may not even want an inspection. So if you go through this and you dig all these things up, you may end up spending a lot more money if they decide not to get one. I mean, a lot of agents tell their buyers, hey, if you ask for an inspection, your offer probably won't be accepted. They say things like this, or may not be accepted. So, but in representing the buyer, yeah, I would never tell them to accept a seller's home inspection.
Because, oh my God, what we found. First off, we're in San Diego, and it's been really popular for developers to come into San Diego, buy up these homes, do shitty flips, and then put them back on the market and hope that somebody just buys it. And this slimy, terrible development company, they got us. As we were doing inspections, we got all our disclosures back, and the inspections on face value were fine. There was nothing super alarming until we got the disclosures back. I'm not a real estate expert, so I do not know what a disclosure technically means, but from my understanding, it's basically the state of the house as per whoever lived in it. So it'll say like, oh, this is in this condition, this is in this condition, this is in this condition, et cetera, et cetera. You have to disclose all of those things when you're selling the home. As developers, they can write, I don't know, on every one of those things because they've never technically lived there. So we got the previous disclosures from the original owners of the house. And guys, this house had black mold in it, all over it, under the entire foundation. Our real estate agent basically said that the home is probably not livable and should probably be torn down. And maybe it's the Midwesterner in me that just cannot believe that somebody would knowingly put a home that has black mold on it on the market. It's
There's
baffling.
a lot to unpack here. So let's talk about mold for a minute. A lot of people do not understand when they buy a property and get a home inspection, the home inspector is not going to unlock things or unscrew panels. If you have a house with a crawl space where she was saying this mold existed in the house, or maybe it's where it started, you have to make sure when you're looking at a house and you're walking around the foundation area, if it does have a crawl space, anything that has some kind of a cover on it that would require to be unbolted or unscrewed in order to access the crawl space, your buyer's agent, or if you don't have an agent, you have to make sure that you tell the listing agent that area needs to be unbolted or unscrewed, that cover, prior to your home inspection, because your inspector will want to get in there and see that. And believe me, it happens all the time. I've had situations where they've even taken refrigerators. A home inspector is not even allowed to move furniture. So if there's an outlet behind a couch, or you're walking through a house and you want to have a home inspection, and you see that furniture is blocking outlets or blocking access ways or a door. I even had one situation where a refrigerator was up against this basement door that went into this really scary kind of root cellar. And there were problems in there with the joist. The floor joists were rotted, and there was a lot of termite damage. But had we not noticed that this refrigerator was blocking this door to where we could tell the listing agent specifically that refrigerator had to be moved prior to the home inspection, it would have never been picked up. So that's an important thing to note. The other thing here is, having access to these prior seller disclosures. So if a house was flipped, can the agent get their hands on these prior disclosure documents? it doesn't always mean that if there were problems, if they were fixed, you don't have to, as a seller, disclose everything that you fixed about a house. You don't have to say, well, this outlet was broken and we had it repaired. You don't have to do that. The outlet was broken. It's working now. However, they should have had it addressed by a professional contractor or licensed contractor. But there, a lot of what she's saying here and a lot of what we're hearing are things that are just buyers are getting bad advice. Let's face it. This is the biggest purchase you'll ever make in your life. Most people, I mean, tell me a bigger purchase than buying a house. Maybe you're buying a business, but I'm talking about common everyday people. The biggest purchase in your life will be a home. And I don't understand how buyers go into this so blindly. They don't interview their agents. We're hearing these horror stories. They don't interview agents. They take their friends, their best friends from college or their mom's aunt or whatever. I've said this before on multiple videos. You have to interview agents. And you have to get a good feeling that this agent is competent. I have a list of interview questions. If you have my Todd Simple Homebuyer course, you will get those. I go into great detail on things you should be looking for when you're going out to buy a house. Most of the things that people never even have thought about until they have a problem after they buy it and move in. And quite honestly, agents don't have a clue either. I mean, you get your license. It does not teach you anything about a house. As I said, most agents, 1 in 5, have been in the business for less than a year. And the other part of that is most of them don't own homes themselves. And people say, well, they get upset. They say, Todd, why would you say that an agent has to own a house before selling one? Well, you don't, obviously. The problem is when you're helping someone else that's never owned a house. That's a problem. If you're an agent and you're just nice and you're trying to learn as much as you can, and you help somebody that's bought multiple houses before, well, that homeowner that has bought before is going to have a really good understanding of how they've been let down or screwed in the past, and they're going to pay attention to certain things. You should not, if you don't own a home, you should not be able to help a first-time home buyer, in my opinion. Now, people say, well, how do you start out? How do you get enough money being in business to buy a home yourself? Well, you could work on a team. You could work under experienced agents. You could go through if you're in a lot of the trades, an apprentice program, some type of apprenticeship program, or a manager, or you have to shadow other agents. You have to learn things, right? Then as you're getting your career going, well, then you buy a house. You understand what it's like. You can help somebody buy a house, a first-time buyer, and share with them what, in my opinion, you should be doing. You don't have to do. Look, this industry says if you can fog a mirror, basically, pass the test, fog a mirror, you can be accepted by a brokerage because they make money, a lot of them, on the fees that they charge. They put the agent as the client instead of the home buyer or seller as their client. Look, it's the fact. The other thing is when we're taught in our basic licensing class to get our license, you're not supposed to be a home inspector. You don't need to know these things. What it is you have to find a ready, willing, and able buyer to buy a house. You have to find them a house, a ready, willing, and able buyer. You don't have to have any expertise. You don't have to have any construction knowledge. None of that, right? And that's fine. Okay, that's the industry as it is. But you as a buyer do not have to accept that. You can look for who it is that you want to help buy a house. Again, these are things that I teach in my course because it's right? I mean, let's face it, education is important.
But unfortunately, that's the world that we live in. And if you don't know what black mold is, black mold can kill you. It can literally kill you. And then our real estate agent did some more digging. The development company that is listing this home has been sued multiple times all across San Diego. They've also changed their name 3 times, so you could no longer find the previous name that they were previously sued under. So needless to say, we have We have canceled our sale for this house and we are no longer in escrow. Like legally, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this development company's name, but if you're in San Diego, literally beware. If you want to know on the side, just DM me and I will tell you all their information.
She's going to tell you. And so this is not the world that we live in. You can say no. The reason why we hear so many remorseful experiences is because people are being ignorant to the fact that they have to take responsibility and educate themselves and not be so reliant on the largest purchase of their lifetime with some incompetent agent, inspector, flipper. You could say no, but I tell you one thing, if you have a good agent or you know what to look for, you're not even going to write a check for a home inspection because you're going to say no. This house isn't for me right off the start. Now, the unfortunate thing is a home inspection can cost you $600 or $700. Right? That's for a basic home inspection. That's not getting into calling a heating and air company to thoroughly examine and inspect your HVAC system in the house, or having a roof inspection, or getting some type of roof certification, having a chimney inspection. All of these things can add up to where you could spend $1,000. Mold is a visual inspection. No inspector is going to say you have black mold. They're going to say there's a physical observance of, of this biological growth, and it should be tested. Now, you can, as a buyer, request that from your home inspector. Hey, I want a mold inspection. Do you do that? I recommend it, especially if you have basements or crawl spaces, or it's damp when you walk through the house. If you go through, you're just looking at the house, you haven't put an offer in yet, but you can smell something. I believe in if you could smell scents, or you can smell where they have or something to cover it up, like plug-ins or something like that. Usually that's a red flag for me. I say, wait a minute, what are they covering up? A lot of times you can smell past that, but mold is something you should be able to smell dampness, moisture. You should be able to visually see it. That is going to tell you if you move forward with putting a contract in, make sure that inspector does mold testing, or have an independent company other than your inspector do some type of mold testing. But again, when you get to that point, you're writing checks.
Hey, everybody. So I wanted to share with you my real estate nightmare that I've been going through in case anybody else ends up in the situation that we're in. Maybe people in the comments can give us some sort of advice on how we could have handled this better, or if there was anything we could have done. So this started like 6 or 7 weeks ago. We need to move to another state, and we started looking for houses. And I looked for weeks, trying to find any house that fits our family. And one morning I opened up the app and there's a house. It had been up for 11 minutes. I immediately texted our realtor and was like, this is the house. I absolutely love this house. Please get us a showing. And she was like, I will get one today. She got a showing. She did a FaceTime walkthrough, said this house is absolutely gorgeous. You have to come see it. And we were like, okay, we got in the car that night. We drove 9 hours to get there. We slept in a Walmart parking lot, and at 9 o'clock the next morning, we went and saw the house, and we fell in love. It was beautiful. Everything we've ever wanted. It is perfect. So we put a bid on it. And we found out that another bid had beat us, so we put an extension clause on it. Not an extension clause, a
backup
escalation
contract.
clause on it.
Oh.
And eventually we found out on our way back home that we won the bid. I was so excited, I screamed. I was so happy. You have no idea. And I got home and I told the family and the kids, and they were ecstatic. They were thrilled. And so we passed it on to the mortgage broker. And they found us, or they went with their usual mortgage company, lender. And we were like, great. We filled out all the paperwork. We had everything going. It was perfect. The first week we find out that there is another lien on our house that wasn't supposed to be there. So we start looking into it. We found out when they sold the house from one mortgage broker or wholesaler or whatever to another, that somebody along the lines had clicked a box, had checked a box that said we had a lien when it didn't. My husband found all of that. He did the due diligence because nobody else was. And he found it all. He sent it in. They were like, cool, we'll move forward. So they move forward. This is the second week. And we don't hear anything from them. Nobody hears anything from them. We're trying to stay on top of the broker. And we don't hear from her for hours and days. And we're like, what is going on? And she's like, oh, I've been training people because apparently she trains people for her company. I'm like, well, that's great, but we need to know what's going on with our house. Like, what is happening? And she's like, I've been emailing them and calling them and nobody's answering the phone and nobody's picking up the emails. I'm like, well, do you want us to call? Like, what's the deal? And so she finds out that the person who had our file ended up in the hospital. It was in his email. And they hadn't given the file to anybody else. So they give the file to somebody else and another week goes by and we still don't hear anything. And we're like, what is going on? Our contract deadline is coming up. We need to know what's going on. And she's like, well, nobody there will answer me. I don't know what's going on. It's taking forever. And I'm like, yeah, that's not our job. Like, this is your job.
So a lot of people don't realize that a lender can really screw up a deal. And it sounds like that's where we're headed in this. Certainly things happen to people, but your contract has dates. When she said we're coming up on our contract deadline, you have certain dates and your financing contingency is one of those dates. Now, if there's a situation where you need an extension because of something like a found lien on a house, the seller would be complete idiots to not give an extension for that to be sorted out, unless we hear that there's something more to that story. Like the seller, now they're underwater, they can't sell the house. But meanwhile, weeks are passing. An agent should also be keeping up on the timeline. When a contract is signed, there are dates in the contract. The first thing that you should do as an agent, as a buyer, as a seller, as a lender, is you go through that contract and you record every single date where something needs to be done by, and you put that into your calendar on your phone. You set alarms, alerts, and you monitor those dates, because you don't want to and a lot of agents, they'll do that. They'll just, okay, this one's sold. I'm spending my commission money, even though I haven't gotten it yet, but I don't, I'm happy. I'm on to the next one, selling the next house, helping the next buyer, working the next listing, and they're not following up with these things. Obviously, she's frustrated.
Please do your job. And days and days, and our realtor's getting frustrated, and I'm getting frustrated.
Realtor's getting frustrated. First of all, I'd like to know, how did the buyer get connected with this lender in the first place? Most of the time, it's because the agent gave the lender as a referral to the buyer and they didn't know anybody. It's like, well, do you know of a home inspector? No, I don't know of a home inspector. Well, I've got one. Well, that's a red flag, right? Your agent's going to give you a home inspector, somebody that won't be a deal killer, because they wouldn't give their name out if their deals got killed. But the same thing is with the lender. Well, this lender, comes to all my open houses, buys my party platters, gives me things that they shouldn't, maybe like a Christmas gift or whatever. And so I have this lender, if you need a lender. So a lot of times agents will give out these third parties that you need in your transaction, whether it's a lender, an inspector, a title company, a contractor to fix things. So as a buyer, you need to know, well, you can accept that from your agent. And a lot of agents do have good referrals, but you should be researching them. You should also be shopping them, getting other prices, getting other information, familiarizing yourself. You say, Todd, well, I'm buying a house. Why do I need to familiarize myself with a home inspector? Well, because you're buying the house. After you settle on the house, it's your problem. So when you're buying a house, you need to know what kind of roof shingles you have on the house. How many more years of life does the shingle have? Well, I don't want to be a roofing expert. I just want to buy a house. Well, you're going to own the roof. So you need to be a roofing expert to some degree. You have to understand these things. Same thing with, they fill out the application. The lender went with the mortgage broker went with some type of corresponding lender, and it was quoted, and it's going through the underwriting process. So a lot of people at that point drop the ball.
Answer her and tell her that they'd given it to somebody who didn't know what to do with it. And she's like, well, give it to somebody higher. So they give it to a manager. Now, our contract ended on Friday the 28th. Friday the 28th comes, and she tells us that they will have it done by that night. They're on another coast. It's another time zone. We have to wait until 9 o'clock or so p.m. to find out anything. Nobody calls. Nobody texts. No documents. Nothing. What is going on? So they send us a closing disclosure, which we fill out. We still don't have a clear to close. They're like, we will get you the paperwork on Monday. So we had to beg the other realtor for an extension, which she gives us out of the kindness of her heart because she really didn't need to. And
her seller gave the extension. The agent doesn't have the authority to provide extensions. And I get that a lot. Well, I'm not going to do this, or my seller won't do this, or my buyer won't do this. And I say, well, let's find out by asking them, because you're not in charge. You're not in control. You are a facilitator. You are an advisor. You could say to your seller, I recommend you sign this extension, but you can't say, we're signing this extension. You have to get the seller's permission. But like I said, the seller would be an idiot in this case to not give the buyers the opportunity to have a clear title. No, it can't close without a clear title.
At the extension, Monday comes along. We don't hear anything. Nothing. Nothing from the company. No paperwork. No documents are sent to us. Nothing for the clearing. So our broker calls the next day. Nobody's picking up. We get in touch with another broker who's our friend from the same company. He gives them a call. They're not picking up. So he gets an idea. He changes his phone number. He calls them back so that they don't know who's calling for them. And they pick up the phone right away. And he is like, oh, wow, somebody does work there. And they're like, yeah, of course. And he's like, well, this is so-and-so from this company. And immediately the guy's tone changed because he knew. He knew. And he's like, what is going on with their mortgage? What is going on? Can you do it? Yes or no? And the guy's like, well. And he's like, no. Yes or no? We need to know. And he's like, well. And he's like, no. Like, give us an answer. And the guy finally goes, no, we can't do it. And he's like, why didn't you tell us that 3 weeks ago? Because we could have gotten another lender to do it. And the guy was like, and he's like, no.
Mm. So it sounds like there was a mistake. It sounds like it wasn't another lien. They checked the box saying there was a lien. It threw the lender off. The lender was an idiot and for whatever reason could not underwrite or have the loan underwritten based on the terms that they agreed to. If you're in a situation where you're going through a lender that's not communicating with you, fire them immediately and get a new lender involved. And like I said, a seller would be, if you are a bona fide buyer, you're qualified, you can buy, you have the wherewithal to close and to buy it, obtain the mortgage, switch mortgage brokers ASAP. And if you're dealing with an agent that's not recording dates and acting in your behalf, she was very kind. She acted like this real estate agent was walking on water. And I can tell you, she's as much to blame in the process, in my opinion, than anybody else, because she should have been on it day one, right? We shouldn't be weeks into the transaction finding out there's problems with the lender.
So, long story short, we had to go with another lender. This was taking forever. Our broker was not staying on top of it. Our realtor was running around like a chicken with her head cut off. We were not hearing anything from anybody.
I can imagine that. A realtor running around like a chicken with her head cut off. Down to the wire as we're getting to the closing table. Now the urgency is really kicking in. We got to do something. Somebody's got to step up and underwrite this mortgage.
Not hearing anything from anybody. And then our realtor talks to them because they're putting the house back on the market, gets a right of refusal, apparently. We sign the paperwork, we give it back to them, and then we wait because our mortgage is being processed. We get the closing disclosure. We just have to do the clear to close.
The mortgage is going to stop the minute you're out of contract. If you no longer have a contract on a house, your mortgage is dead. That's not how it works. Okay. So, what she was saying is that they had a first right. So, the house goes back on the market because the seller is starting to get to the point that they're passing dates. They're obviously out of contract, because if they were still in contract or had an extension long enough, how long was the extension? Was it a week? Was it 2 weeks? Was it 30-day extension? Because again, we're not meeting those date deadlines. The seller says, look, we love you. We want you to have this house, but we no longer have the faith or belief that you can make it happen. We're going back on the market. We'll give you the first right of refusal, which that would need to be disclosed to a buyer that wants to buy the house. You would have to say, look, somebody else has a first right of refusal after you get an offer. Okay, well, now we've got this offer with these terms. It's a disaster.
Close. And we still haven't heard anything. And we get a call yesterday, and it's our realtor. And she says they got an offer on the house and they accepted it. I'm so sorry.
Boom.
And I'm like, how? We had a right of refusal. We're supposed to have 24 hours to come back and say, here's our closing, our clear to close. Like, this is your check. Here it is. And she goes, well, they never signed the paperwork.
Oh, whoa, hold on. They never signed the first right of refusal. So they were presented with a first right of refusal. Here's a buyer. Well, where's my first right of refusal? Where's that document signed by the seller that says that that's the stipulation, that's the deal? That's an agent's responsibility as well. You don't just send off a document that you presented that your buyer has signed, you give it to the listing agent, and then you say, when can I get it back? Well, I haven't gotten it. Now it's 24 hours. When can we expect it back? It's 48 hours. When can we expect it back? All of a sudden now they didn't sign it. You've got nothing. And for the most part, real estate is statutory law. It must be in writing. Now, there probably are some states that a verbal agreement or whatever may hold up in the court of law. But what are you going to do at that point? You're going to hire an attorney? Her agent was an idiot.
And our realtor never checked to make sure they signed the paperwork. So we lost the house. Our dream house. We lost our dream.
This is the world we live in, huh? That's would they say that's the world we live in? No, it's not the world we live in. It's uneducated homebuyers buying the most expensive thing they will ever buy in their entire lifetime, not being educated. Guys, look, this is not an infomercial. This is why I wrote my course. Okay, I'm not patting myself on the back, but I've been in serving the housing market for a long time, decades, 35 years in one way or another, as a contractor, as a builder, as a real estate agent. I had a team leader, and now I'm a broker. And I manage agents. This is not the way the world is. All right. This is the way the world is when you accept that. As a home buyer, you can say no to it. You can educate yourself. You can buy a house without a real estate agent. In fact, I mean, who knows what's coming down the pike with AI? I was against it, and just a year ago, I interviewed somebody saying that there's no way AI would take over a real estate agent's job, and then the lawsuit, and with the NAR, and then finding out how many people are buying my course to learn how to do this on their own. A lot of them, they want to know, how do I buy a house and not have to pay a real estate agent? Because they realize that whether they have an agent or not, there's a possibility that you can buy the house for less if you don't have a real estate agent. So why would you give up? Let's just say that you come to me and my fee is 3% to help you buy a house. Let's just say that. And where's that money come from? Okay, the seller's providing it, maybe in scenario A, or the listing agent in their commission with their seller, they're authorized to split some portion that they get with the buyer's agent. Okay, well, who ultimately is paying for that? So if you're, number one, buying a house and you're not educating yourself to do the right steps and go in eyes wide open, and then you're committing to a large check. If my fee were 3%, you buy a $500,000 house, $500,000 house, that means my fee in that case would be $15,000, of which, you're responsible for in one way or another, right? If I don't get compensation from either the seller or the listing agent, you're paying it all. But who pays it all in the first place? To my original point. It breaks my heart to hear these stories. They're real. I can't imagine that someone would go on social media for 9 minutes and talk about how heartbroken she is. They're moving across the country. They want to buy a house and how they were let down by the industry in a lot of ways. But I have to tell you, home buyers, it's your fault. In most cases, it's your fault. You're not doing the due diligence. You're not hiring properly. It's like going into a restaurant and getting bad service. Right? You say, okay, you're the customer. You didn't know what you were getting into. However, there are things that you can do to prevent spending a whole lot of money and getting bad service. You could sit down at the table. You could see that you're getting bad service. You can pack up your stuff and leave. You don't have to say, well, geez, we haven't had a waiter here at the table. We gave her a drink order. It's like 15 minutes. We're thirsty. No, you can pack up and get out. That's your choice. The same thing. You talk to a real estate agent. You don't like what you're seeing. You're not feeling it. Don't sign the agreement with them. Interview more agents. So anyway, hope you guys got something from that video. You can let me know in the comments section, and also by checking the box. And I have pinned in the comments below my Todd Simple home buying course, guys. This is something, $300. You're going to learn so much information. Everybody that we listen to here in this video spent more money in their bad experience than they would have if they would have been properly educated, right? I mean, they drove 9 hours. They spent gas money, time, back and forth, commitment. Other people got home inspections. They paid big money out of their pocket for a house that they probably would not have even put an offer in the first place. Anyway, see you next time.
Sachs Realty, Maryland broker number 607720, office number 443-318-4514, equal housing opportunity.